Good morning,
Good
Ganesh.
morning. Good morning,
Very good
Tanuj.
morning, friends. So we'll get started in a minute. And for those new joinees, Geetika and Raviteja. So what we have covered yesterday, I just wanted to provide a 2-minute brief review of what happened yesterday's session. Right. So this was an yesterday session where we talked about what is the course schedule and what is the order of the learnings, right? Because it's an 8-module course that you're going to learn. So there's an just to get a better perspective about how could the journey would be that for the next 100 hours, 100 days or so. We're going to talk about this kind of a structure that what we're going to learn, and we're going to share you the recording too, so that it will provide a good information like what you are going to learn, and in the process, what kind of materials that you're going to provide, right? So for your quick revision or quick summary or quick references, right? So these are all the set of materials that you're going to provide by uploading to your Google Drive link where you can access it, and all the materials will be uploaded by end of the day. Okay. And coming to the, since it is an online module course, so we cannot see each other, we cannot read your minds what is going through. So the reason to keep a performance check, whether you're learning all the concepts correctly or not, whether you're able to perform expected or not. So this is an engagement model that we are going to provide some random quizzes, some wake up quizzes, some assignments. So it should give us a good idea about whether you're able to observe the content or not. And the most important piece where most of the students who are going to join any of the program is like, how can you help us in securing the job, right? So this is what we're going to provide. So we're going to help you in tips and tricks, how do you build your profiles, and we are going to conduct a lot of mock-up interviews, right? So once your profile is ready, once your revision is ready, then we are going to help you in preparing your profile, conducting some mock-up interviews, and we have a very good alumni connect. So whenever there are any internal referrals in any of those organizations, our students will try to inform us, and based upon that we are going to do it. And the crux of the program, POC. So how could you do on the open source data sets, right? But it is always about whether you are able to solve a problem statement independently by yourself. So after 50 days of the program, we'll start saying like pick up a use case in your current organization so that you can start building a POC. It might not be an end state solution, but definitely that will give you much more confidence. So the reason this is what we will do, and even after the completion of the program, we'll be creating some new topics, right? Some advanced topics or some of the latest trends in the industry, and we are going to conduct some ad hoc sessions. And we talked about what kind of an expectations, right? So how good I teach, definitely it's up to the students, how committed are to their program. So some of those expectations from my side about daily attendance, focus and commitment, interactiveness, one of those very soft skill that a data scientist requires is the proactiveness and the interactiveness, right? Because if you want to get more information from the business side, definitely you need this stuff. So the reason I always stress upon being more proactive and interactive, and revisions and practice, right? So there is no substitute for your hard work and smart work. So that's what we say. And coming to the hardware requirements, any laptop with 4 GB RAM is decent enough for us to proceed, and a good pair of headset, because it's an online program. So definitely getting some echo, getting some background noise would definitely hamper the quality of the recordings, and you would not get a chance to converse with me. So this is what we have done, Geetika, Raviteja, and I see another new joinee, Raghava. So this is what pretty much covered. So we are going to share you the recording, and let's get started for today's session. So what are we going to do as part of today's session is, we are learning so many things, right? We are learning stats, we are learning machine learning, we are getting exposed to different programming frameworks, but we need to understand how do you connect all these dots together. So where statistics comes to the picture, where does visualization comes to the picture, right? So where is your general business logic or domain expertise comes into the picture. So the reason today's topic is to get a better perspective of what is the life cycle of a data science project. Okay, because we are working traditionally as a software engineers or some other roles. So the reason it needs to discussed in a greater detail, saying that how, whenever a data science problems statement comes to you, how do you solve a data science problem statement, right? So I'm not going to discuss in a greater detail about how the requirements come and etc., because until unless you don't understand the actual phases of a data science project, it does not matter much what happens towards the left, what happens towards the right. So I'm keeping these pieces for towards the end of the program. So where you'll get much more maturity about how do you solve a data science project, then how do you interact with the BAs, how do you interact with the business SMEs, and how do you interact with the data warehousing system experts. Once you develop a machine learning solution, how do you deploy it, right? Whether it is a CI/CD, whether I need to run my Python script, or whether should I expose my solution as a REST API service, or someone will try to build a UI on top of it, right? So those are the things that we are keeping towards the end of the program. But for now, since we are learning the subject, I'm more focused, I'm more interested in understanding what are the different phases of a data science project as soon as the data has been provided to a data scientist. Are you clear on this point, friends? Right? We are going to talk about only the phases that gets involved by a data scientist and what are the things that he hands-on does some of those solutioning. Okay. Now coming to the first phase. So as soon as there is a requirement from the business team saying that, hey, I wanted to optimize this particular pricing of a particular product, say one letter statement, or else he wants to say, hey, I'm losing a lot of customers. Can you predict if a customer is going to leave the organization or not, looking at his transactional details, right? So this is one letter problem statement that business gives it. So we give it a thought saying that what is this particular problem statement? What is this particular product line? That we interact with business tech BAs or the actual BAs, right? We try to interact with them to get a better understanding about the problem statement, the product line, and the domain related with it. Then we try to work with data warehousing system experts, because being a data scientist, you might not be know what are the factors and those factors are available or not in your data warehousing systems, right? It does not mean that each and every set of evidence would be present as is. So it takes a lot of exploration, working with multiple stakeholder teams to identify what are the factors that are important to make this prediction. And at the same time, the data might be spread across different databases. So as an example, his application details might be in MS SQL. His transactional details might be in Oracle. His behavioral traits, where a little analytics has been happened, and those might have been stored in a distributed computing system. So it means the data might be spread across different databases and different sources. So that's where we need to work with the data engineering team, or else we call the ATL engineers team, where they try to map all these different sources of truth together, and they try to dump the required information and a single source of truth for a data scientist, right? So to keep it very simple, what happens towards the left, friends? Before you start developing the solution, can someone quickly reiterate what have you just thought about? What are the teams that you will be working with?
ALT team. With all the
Right?
stakeholders, we have to get the data.
Right. So there are a lot of stakeholders teams. So the reason what we do, we work with business teams, okay, for us to get a better understanding about the problem statements, right? We work with this domain SMEs, right? Because it might not be making sense to talk to actual business teams to explain their entire domain to us. So the reason they try to delegate to explain about the domain, to explain about what is the workflow of a particular business process or a customer journey or a particular flow, okay? And once you are able to be very clear about the problem statement, and once you are able to clearly identify what are the tentative factors which might influence the outcome, right? What do we do? Now, first we need to understand where the factors are, right? So definitely we work with your data warehousing system SMEs, right? Because as I said, the data might be spread across multiple databases, right? Being a data scientist, we will not be able to search for this entire set of information which is spread across multiple databases, right? So the reason we work with business teams, domain experts, right, and data warehousing system SMEs to identify the factors and to identify those all the respective variables correctly. And once that is done, then we work with the data engineers. Okay, so why data, or else you people, right, these are the fancy names, but you can call this ETL engineers too. They are well equipped to work on data stage, informatica, ab initio, talent, right? And there are some lightweight ETL tools too, just like trifactor. So it all depends upon the organization's roadmap, what are the different skill set that they use, or else people might be using a big data developers where they can write some scripting in the Hadoop or MapReduce or some kind of a stuff. But the ultimate goal is the data is spread across the different sources and different databases and different tables, they try to bring all this data into the sandbox where the data scientist works on. Maybe you might be working on a Windows server, or maybe you might be working on a Linux server or any other platforms. So it is their duty to ensure all the data which is spread across different databases has been collected and been provided to you in a single format. Are clear now, friends? What happens towards the left? On a very high level, we are going to have a greater discussion towards the end, but this is to just tell you how the requirements comes in and how what are all the stakeholder teams that you have to work with. Is there any questions here?
Danish, my question is technical in nature. You're saying that data has to be in single source. Does it mean that they have to convert, ETL team has to convert into some kind of, I mean, they have to collect and put it in some kind of a database
It
or
is a database. See, as a
yeah,
simple, right? So in the customer churn example that I have told, in order to predict something, you need various factors. Agree, Manoj?
this is Santosh, Danish.
Oh, Santosh. Okay. So do you agree with this point?
No,
You
no,
need
my
various
question,
factors. No, no. While I'm trying to explain the process, you'll get the answer in the while.
okay, okay,
Okay. So his application details is one database, because as you know, even though it is a single product, but when you try to walk through the customer journey or the life cycle of a particular process, the application details are being stored by a separate department, right? Originations department or maybe onboarding department, and they have been stored as MS SQL as an example. Okay. Now his transaction, once the customer is onboarded, do you think that the same team would be taking care of their servicing? Definitely not. Agree?
yep,
Yeah, so there's another department. Okay, we call it as a function or a line of business, or it could be any aspect of your organization structure, right? His transactional details are being present in a Oracle, because that particular application is being handling or supporting by a OLTP called as an Oracle. Now, do you think that a data scientist will be able to write a ETL script to connect those two together? Can we? Or is it
okay,
expected to pay so high to join to different sources of databases to pull the data? Definitely not. That is a very standard industry standard practice to make use of a ETL engineers, where they try to extract, transform, and load the data set as part of the business requirements. So the reason
okay,
I'm just trying to give you this particular point of data engineers or ETL engineers, where they're trying to join, where they're trying to club, or where they're trying to flatten the data which is spread across multiple different databases.
okay,
Are you clear?
okay, yep,
Does it answer the question, Santosh?
yeah,
And again, friend, keep it a very high level, because we are going to have an in-depth discussion. But since my focus of this particular session is to explain you the data science project lifecycle, but I just cannot go forward and say, hey, the data is in front of you. Just to give a little overview about how data comes to you and how the business problem statement comes to you, I'm just trying to provide what happens towards the left. And then being a data scientist, you will be present in all the stakeholder meetings, because you're the one who is going to solve. So you need to be very comfortable with the problem statement, right? Whether you're trying to solve the cause or whether you're trying to solve the outcome, right? So the reason a data science team would always be present in all those different uh, stakeholder meetings. Okay. Any other questions before I proceed to explain the actual phases of a data science project? Appreciate your acknowledgements in the chat, at least. As I said, acknowledgements are very important for me.
Good. Good.
Yeah,
Okay. So friends, if you have any trouble in opening the microphone, please make use of the chat window. And as I said, I monitor each and every piece, right? How we are trying to be staying active, what is your responsiveness, right? I track each and everything as part of the chat too.
so
Okay.
Dhanush, I'm not sure if Santosh's question is being answered. Okay, the point is actually once ETL
Uh,
engine needs extracted data.
Gautam, it's better to ask from the Santosh itself. Santosh, is your question answered?
yeah, in a way it is answered. See, I just said, my question is technical in nature. So the question is about, the getting data from different sources. Is it part of data scientist or is it part of ETL? That you answered, Danish. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Now, Gautam, what is your question?
Okay. maybe I understood in a different manner, but the question is once they extracted, where we are going to store. That is what I understood
Yeah, I
from
mean,
some.
in my Gautam, that
It
is
would be
also
a
one of the
database.
question. Yeah,
Yeah,
we
so it
need
would be a
separate
database.
database, but yeah.
Obviously, right? So because you don't work on all the platforms, as I said, you might be working on a Windows server based upon your organization. You might be working on a Linux server based upon your organization, and based upon their strategy of the particular sandbox, the data would be stored in a respective table. It could be MS SQL, MySQL, or it could be Oracle. It could be any database. Got that point? Okay. So once all these things are done, the data is in front of you, sitting on one table or maybe a couple of tables, right? Once the data is in front of you, what you do? Right? Because you need to get a better understanding on the data. Say as an example, the data is 1 million records and 100 variables. Friends, is it manually possible for you to browse the data? Is it ever possible to get a look and feel of the data of 100 variables and 1 million records, 10 lakhs?
No, it's not
Definitely not,
possible, man.
right? It is not at all possible. Yeah, so this is what we do. For us to get a better understanding on the data, for us to get a better characteristics, the descriptions of the data that you are working on, what we do is we do a first phase, which is called as exploratory data analysis. Okay, what do you mean by exploratory data analysis? It means you're working on a problem statement called as customer attrition. It means the business asked us to select what are the set of customers who are tentatively might leave the organization. How would you be able to figure it out? First, we need to understand the historical patterns. So for the last 10 years, they have given the entire dump of the customer information, their application details, their servicing details, their transactions details, the amount of the transactional details, how many complaints did they raise, how many SLS were breached, right? How many times did they visit the store or the retail branch, right? These are the set of factors that will be provided to us. No, we cannot work on 1 million customers database just like that, right? We need to have a one smart way of trying to identify what are the generic patterns. Hey, what is an average age of our customers, right? Maybe what is the number of transactions per month? What is the volume? What is the dollar amount that they're trying to make those transactions? How many complaints did they raise? Right? Out of the how many complaints, how many we were not able to close them within the standard SLA? Right? How many times did they have to call the customer call center for the same complaint? So this is how we need to analyze all these things. So for this to happen, right, you need to make use of the descriptive statistics, right, and visualization, right? Because data alone or the numerical measures alone might not be able to explain the characteristics of the data, right? Sometimes you might use the graphical representation along with the basic statistical methods for us to get a better understanding of the data. Are we clear? So by using all this, you will get to know, hey, out of 1 million records, maybe 1 lakh records does not have a amount field. Maybe because of the upstream application issues or something, few of the information is not kept. You will say, hey, there are so many missing values in my data, right? While you are trying to understand the data, you will see a lot of anomalies in the data, right? Say as an example, one customer is having 102 years of age. Wow, that is an extreme, isn't it? Right? It is very rare or seldom that does not frequently happen, saying that customers having an age of 1 or 2 and still maintaining a bank account and transacting pretty heavily. So it means while you are trying to explore the data, while you are trying to analyze the data, you will get a better understanding on the data that you're working on. Over and above, you try to observe the characteristics. What are the tentative characteristics? You might be looking at what are the missing values, right? I have 100 variables. Of them, out of 100 variables, how many of them belong to categorical nature? How many of them belong to numerical nature, right? Is there any anomalies in each variable, right? There was a customer who's transacting nearly 2,500 transactions per month. Oh my God, right? He's like in there's sort of bunch of customers where their number of transactions per month is very exceptionally beyond the average. The average number of transactions are 50, but there are few customers who are transacting 2,500. So this is how well you are trying to calculate the simple means, medians, deviations, variations of the data. You try to see what are the characteristics exhibited by few of those customers. You get this point, but how do you do it, right? This is where we are going to use descriptive statistics, and with visualization you are going to get a better understanding on the data, and also you're going to derive the characteristics exhibited by your data set that you're working on. Are you clear on this point? And we are going to do a lot of things. These are just a couple of examples. It is not only helping you to better understand on the problem statement on the data, but it's also in the process, you'll get exposed to a lot of anomalies, what are different characteristics exhibited by the data. Right? Few variables are on a certain magnitude, few other variables are on a higher magnitude. Right? Few of the variables have a unique value always, few of the variables does not have anything. So this is how you try to understand all those things by using the simple descriptive statistics and visualizations. Okay, any questions here?
Yeah, Dhanush, so it's kind of bucketing, right? Like which bucket of customers is affecting me more or leaving me more.
No, Manoj.
That
So
way.
this is just an, if you see, exploration and data analysis. It means you're just trying to explore the data because you're not a domain expert. You never worked on this particular customer database before. They are the business people and they're the technology people who have already gone through this particular customer journey. They are pretty much easy. But for you, do you think that you will have the complete knowledge on the problem statement? Definitely not.
No.
Right? So the
Okay.
reason, apart from whatever the knowledge that our business teams, the domain experts have provided, we try to validate them. At the same time, for us to get a better understanding on the data, we explore individually and independently. And being from the data science background, we have to use our descriptive statistical numerical measures and some visualization graphs. When I say talk about visualization graphs, it should not be always heat maps and etc. Right? As long as your intent is being understood, right? Even using the histograms, pie charts, bar charts, line graphs, scatter plots, box plots, those are the standard set of graphical representation that is good enough, right? We are not
So in
going
a
to
way,
build any dashboards here.
we are parallelly doing this thing in line with the business sector.
See, business does not do anything, right? They just try to help us in identifying the set of factors. They try to help us in understanding what is the definition of the column, right? What is the different values present in a column? What does each value in a column means? Right? You need to understand all those. Because prior to this,
Okay.
we are working as a software engineers where we never cared about if what is the definition of this column, where does in the life cycle of this particular problem statement this column is created. If this column has 5 categorical values, what does each categorical value mean? We don't go into that kind of a depth because our roles never demanded that, right? So the reason I'm just trying to say, like, it is our responsibility to spend a quality time in understanding the data and understanding the characteristics exhibited by the data. Are you clear on this, friends? The first phase.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Once you get a better understanding on the data, once you find the characteristics exhibited by the data, what do? We go to the next phase called as data pre-processing. Right? It's pretty clear on the word. It's a pre-process. It means all the data that is being sitting in your database and systems on your tables are not being stored for analytical consumption. Right? As part of the raw data set, as soon as the transactional data is getting generated, with little formatting of the data, we are storing as is in your data warehousing system. But for you to apply some statistical modeling, for you to apply some machine learning modeling, few algorithms expects the data to be free from some kind of a radical behavior. Say as an example, friends, do you remember the Euclidean distance formula from your high schools? The distance between 2 points in a space is equal to square root of P2 minus P1 whole square plus Q2 minus Q1 whole square. Right? A simple Euclidean distance formula. This particular formula is being used in one of the machine learning algorithm. Now, if a data set has, or if a row has null values, does this formula will work?
No,
Friends?
no,
No.
no, it
Why?
not
Because
work.
it's a null value. There is a zero. It's not even a zero. It is a space. No, you cannot substitute a space in a formula, mathematical formula. It means few algorithms, few statistical models expects the data to be of a certain format. So that I'm saying, when you're trying to store the data in a database, those are never being stored for the analytical consumption. So the reason what we do as part of the data pre-processing, you convert the raw data set into a cleansed and a formatted data. What we do as part of this phase, we try to convert the raw data set into a cleansed data, because as part of your first phase, you got a lot of characteristic details. Hey, there are missing values in this column. Hey, there are some very anomaly behavior or extreme behavior of few of the data points. Hey, I see few of the variables are in categorical nature, few variables are in the numerical nature. So these are the different characteristics that you have observed, and as part of this phase, you try to fix all such kind of an issues. And depending upon the algorithm choice, few things has to be done more, few things has to be done less. right? If I'm using a very good algorithm which does not care about missing values, that is a different story. But as part of this very standard practice, as part of this, we try to impute the missing values. We try to remove or maybe try to give a threshold value for the extreme value behavior. And depending upon algorithm choice, we might have to convert a categorical variable to numerical variable, or else to convert a numerical variable to a categorical variable. Sometimes we might have to remove the noise, etc. So these are all the different things that we do as part of your data pre-processing. Again, I'll be using some statistical knowledge here and also some basic general rules. Right? Why general rules? Say as an example, I have a date time field. It is a generally, most of the times it is a 26 character long. But sometimes I'm not bothered about the 26 character length. Maybe I need only month of the year, or maybe week of the month, or maybe day of the week. Right? So this is what you do. You use your general rules to extract the substring out of the entire information. Or else, if you're working on a diabetics detection, right, generally you'll get a health index or the what is called height and weight. If I use height and weight, right, can I come up with a new factor, friends? Can we do this? Using the height and weight, what is a very good thing that you can extract?
BMI.
BMI.
Very good. See, this is what happens. So the reason I said you might not be a domain expert, but if you can have a very good cordial association with the domain experts, sometimes your life become very easy. So this is how you try to apply a lot of statistical techniques over and above. Sometimes a simple if conditions, a simple rules might help us to convert a raw data set into a cleansed and a formatted data set where you can apply some statistical and machine learning algorithms on the data. Are we clear about the space too? Friends, are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Very good.
Yeah.
Now, say I'm continuing with the same example. I am trying to predict if a customer is going to leave the organization or not. And as I said, they have given 1 million rows and 100 variables. Now, Pranati, can you assume saying that each and every variable is of same and equal importance? Can we assume that?
We may not be. We will have to analyze more on each factors or variables.
Very good. It means even though business will dump hundreds of variables, because sometimes business are not that greatly associated with technology, they will dump the entire tables sometimes. They're very lazy bones. So they say, hey, consider all these 100 or 300 variables. You are a data scientist. Figure it out by yourself. Now, if that kind of a heavy number of variables are dumped against us, how do we do it? Because we know that not every variable is of same importance. Few variables have a high impact on your outcome, and few variables might have a less impact, and few variables might be just noise, isn't it? Can you believe that whatever the business provides or dumps the data, can you say that each variable is of highest importance so that they're providing to us? Definitely not. So this is what we do. Once the data has been cleansed, what we do is dimensionality reduction. What do you mean by dimensionality reduction? It means we are going to select what are all the important features out of the 100 variables that has been provided to me. Again, we are going to make use of some statistical methods, some machine learning methods to identify what are the most important variables which are going to impact my predictions. Or else we might have to do some extraction. It means converting, say as an example, x1, x2, x3, the input variables, I'm naming them as x1 variable, x2 variable, x3 variable, all the way to x100 variables. There are way too many variables, right? There is another concept called as extraction. It means converting the variables into a different dimension, right? It means x1, x2, x3, all the way to x100 variables will be now converted into z1, z2, all the way to maybe z20. It means I'm trying to extract or convert the original set of variables altogether into a different dimensions. It means either I can use a feature selection mechanism where I'm trying to cherry pick the variables based upon its importance, based upon its impact on the outcome, or else I can use a feature extraction method. But by using the feature extraction method, my original set of variables will be transformed into a different components altogether. Are you clear on this? Friends, are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, and then comes the feature engineering. What again? What do you mean by feature engineering? Just like I said, height and weight. If I've been a little good about my domain knowledge, if I'm able to extract those intelligence domain during my initial 2 weeks my project, I might club 2 or 3 variables together and I can come up with a new feature altogether. Right? That is a domain related, right? No one will be able to get a domain expertise on all the industries and all the respective organizations. So the reason, as I said, the initial 2 weeks or 3 weeks of our journey, while we are trying to understand the problem statement, we try to get all these kind of insights where we try to say, hey, can I make use of these 2 or 3 variables together and come up with a new feature? So that is in using your domain knowledge. Okay. So this is what happens. But in the interface, what you are again making use of it, you are using the statistical procedures and you are using your machine learning techniques. Okay. Are you clear now, friends? What do we do as part of the phase 3? And what kind of skills that are required for you to go through them, right? And again, I'm including the domain because domain would come always. So this I'm not mentioning as a domain knowledge would be helpful. But since I'm more talking about the tech stack, so this is a set of things that are going to help. Okay. And here, when I say start set, maybe while trying to process the data, we might be using our NLP knowledge too, because if the data is in text information, right, you need a certain set of different techniques to convert the raw data set into a cleansed data set. So the reason I might be using some NLP techniques also if the data is text data. Any questions here till phase 3?
Good, Dhanush.
Good.
How about others? I'm not getting a reply from everyone. I'm expect acknowledgements
No,
everyone.
Dhanush, what if the data is in images or else voice?
Yeah, so that's what I said, right? So it all depends upon the type of the data. So because again, right, so working on a real-time images or voice in any of the organizations except for FANG or some research fields is very, very rare. So when I'm going to talk about the deep learning, I'm going to explain you how this particular information would be converted by using the deep learning frameworks and also the TensorFlow. Okay, let's try to talk about more which you are going to work on the real-time data sets. Okay, Pawan?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, because the pixels, and I don't want to deviate much, right? Because most of the times what we work on the real time is not on face recognitions or will not be working on voice recognitions, right? Our set of problem statements for any standard organization are much different of what you see in the YouTube channels and the blogs and articles. Yeah, Padma. Yep, you're right. Okay, now moving to the next phase, right? Once the data is very cleansed, once the data is out of the noise, and once you're able to identify all the required columns which make sense are ready with us. Now what you do, you try to fit the model, right? It means you try to take a bunch of different machine learning algorithms, different statistical algorithms, different deep learning algorithms, and you try to start understanding the relationship between your input and output. And I'm continuing the same example of customer churn, right? So what do we do? So as an example, let me take a simple example. Okay, friends, I have 3 records and 2 variables. One is input variable, one is output variable. Now Kasi, can you help me? When x equal to 1, y is equal to 2. When x equal to 2, y is equal to 4. When x equal to 3, y is equal to 6. This is my input and output, and there are 3 records. Now if I have to build a mathematical model out of it, can you tell me the equation based upon the numbers that I just spoken? 1 2 2 4 3 6.
1 2 3 4
2 4 2 4 3 6.
1 2 3 4, right? 1 2 2 4 1 2 2 4
Okay,
3 6.
are you in
Yeah,
the session, Kasi?
yeah, I'm there.
Okay,
Correct.
then I need your complete attention here. When x equal to 1, y is equal to 2. When x equal to 2, y gave me the value of 4. When x equal
4.
to 3, y gave me value of 6.
Yeah, it's double the number. Yeah. Next one is
Can you
4.
tell me the equation? What is the relation between x and y?
Okay, y equal to 2x.
Simple, y equal to 2x. Why we are able to tell this so fast? Because there are only 2 variables, there are only 3 records. But what I'm working on, I'm working on 1 million records and 100 variables, isn't it? Now, if I have to build a mathematical relationship or some kind of a relationship between inputs and outputs, definitely we need some set of algorithms. Agree, friends?
Yeah.
Right? So the reason we are going to apply your statistical models, your machine learning models, and your deep learning models here. Now you got the point? It means once you're able to understand the data, once you're able to convert the raw data set in for analytical consumption, once you're able to identify the important variables, components by removing the less important, by removing the noise from the data, the next phase is to understand the relationship between your inputs and outputs. So the reason you'll be leveraging the statistical modeling, machine learning, deep learning, depending upon the problem statement, how complex the problem is, how simple the problem is, whether you're trying to deploy this solution for a business application, for a technology application. So we look at a lot of different aspects before you choose an algorithm. It is not just like I put a for loop and say like I have 15 algorithms knowledge, let me put it in a loop and whichever gives me the best accuracy, I will go with it. That is not that kind of a straightforward, right? We need to use and understand what are the non-functional requirements, right? Which we'll be talking as part of the program. But to keep it simple, your statistical modeling, your machine learning, your deep learning would come in handy to understand this. And in the case, right, for the same example of x equal to 1, y equal to 2. So as an example, if I get x equal to 4, right, Padma, what would be the output based upon the equation that Kasi has told? 8. How you are able to say this? Because you are able to train a machine learning algorithm on the training data, and as soon as you are able to figure it out the mathematical relationship or the statistical relationship by using an algorithm, now you got a knowledge, you got an expertise of your historical data. How this happens? Generally, we divide our data into training bucket and a testing bucket. It means how we were able to come up with y equal to 2x, because I have 3 records and 2 variables. So there is I'm using y equal to 2x. And on my testing, right, what I do, I try to impart this particular knowledge that I have gained on my training data set. I'm going to test it. Okay, I'm using the 4 as a test record, and as soon as I substitute 4 equal to into the equation, I get a value of 8, and I will see what's an actual value of y at that particular instance. If the actual value is 8, and if the actual value is, or the predicted value is 8, what is an error? The actual is 8, the predicted value is 8. Do I have any error here, friends?
No error.
No error. So that's what we say. But how does this happen? This is a traditional way. Dividing your entire set of the data into training and testing buckets, or else dividing your training data into train, validation, or test buckets. Right? I'm going to talk about a lot of things, but few people have little exposure. They might be thinking we might not be learning the entire set, or else I might be using a cross validation techniques. I'm going to explain all the things, but you can understand how the machine learning modeling works. We are going to explain a machine by using an algorithm saying that understand the relation between your inputs and outputs, right? And once the understand is being learned by that particular algorithm, we are using that particular knowledge gained by your machine learning algorithm, and we are going to test it on the second bucket. And for this particular second bucket, you know the actuals also. So it is very easy for you to compare the predicted versus actuals. So our end goal is to always have the highest accuracy. But as you see in your open source data sets, you will not always be getting 99, 98%, right? As you know, even when Alexa was launched, it was not even giving 70% accuracy, because that is how the machine learning process is. Machine learning or data science process is a iterative and incremental fashion. You might not be able to get the best accuracies in the first iteration, but what you ensure is in subsequent iterations, there is an increment in the performance. Okay, are you clear now? Any questions here on the fourth phase? And these are very high level steps. I'm just, because before you start the journey, why are we learning so many things, sir, is just because of this. Each one of the things that we are going to learn is going to help you in a particular phase of a data science project. Any questions here?
Sir, what is CV, sir? The fourth one.
Cross validation. Don't worry, because I'm just trying to use some short notations,
Okay,
keeping the time in mind. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions? Tejasri, Tanbinu, pretty silent today.
No, Dhanush.
Okay, very good. Now, of what we do, because they said this, and see, even though I'm trying to list down this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, never think that this is structured way. They say it is an iterative process. It means sometimes if you don't get a good accuracy, go to data pre-processing, or else if the accuracy is not good, you might have to change something on the dimensional reduction, or else as part of my modeling, maybe I might be using different algorithms, right? So then it is, even though I'm listing out as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps, that is just to mention the order of the phase. It does not mean that once I'm done with step 3, I will never come back to step 3. No. So it all depends upon the performance of the model. So the reason all these steps are iterative process. And in the process, right? So just like a guitar has levers, right? To get the best tune, what do you do, friends? As in a guitar, what do you do on the guitar?
We will adjust the
You adjust the
strings.
levers. Why? Yeah, you adjust the levers or the strings so that you get the best tune, right? Because every tune or every note has certain sound, and you have to reproduce it. Only then you are going to get a best performance. Similarly, each one of the statistical model, each one of the machine learning algorithm, each one of the deep learning algorithm has some set of levers. What do you call them as? We call them as hyperparameters, right? You try to tune the hyperparameters, right? Each algorithm either will have one or have tens of tuning parameters. The moment you tune them, your accuracy will go up. Simple. So instead of changing the model, instead of changing the dimensionality reduction techniques, you might sometimes happen, it is already 95. All you have to do is increase by 1 or 2% to reach the acceptance criteria of the business teams. So in those cases, what you do, instead of changing all the prior procedures, maybe there are a lot of hyperparameters that are available as part of my model. I'm going to tune it. Are you clear now? So these are the very high level steps, but people, if someone wants to validate the model performance, I can include this too as one of the techniques, because validation is very, very important, right? Validation metrics. Once you build a model, how are you convincing the business saying that this particular model or this particular solution that you have developed would work even in the production system? Are you clear on this point? So the reason, while you're trying to fit the model, you try to always validate the performance using the different criteria. Again, right? Your statistical kind of a techniques, your ML related techniques will come in handy. Okay, so these are the very high level steps that gets involved the moment the data set is being provided to you for the solving. Any questions here, friends? So the reason, as part of the program, you are learning descriptive statistics, inferential statistics, visualizations, right? Machine learning, deep learning, NLP, etc. And I've not written programming because, you know, right? You cannot implement all this on a piece of paper. Definitely you need to expose or you need to write all those applications in a programming language. So the reason we are starting with R, during the middle and towards end, we are going to expose you to the Python, and during the climax, we are going to do some deep learning stuff on TensorFlow. Okay. Any questions here? Friends, this is very, very important, right? Because we might not come to this section always. So the reason it makes sense for us to remember and understand what are the very high level phases that are involved in delivering a data science project successfully. Any questions here? At least I need to get those 17 acknowledgements in the chat or through voice.
No,
Yes,
Dinesh.
Yes, Harsha.
hello,
Any
Dhanush.
questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one question regarding the visualizations. So I think R helps us in some visualizations that I'm aware.
Very good.
But
Yeah, very good one. So people, so sorry to hijack your point. Friends, it is a very common notion saying that a data scientist has to work on Tableau. Friends, you are working on an open source language called as R and Python. Why would your business would be interested to provide you a Tableau, which is a licensed, which will cost hundreds of dollars for your organization, right? If it is in bulk license, then you are going to get it and you can make use of it. But it is a very general common misconception saying that a data scientist will work only on Tableau for visualizations. That is very, very incorrect, right? I never used Tableau. Let me be very frank. I'm a real-time expert who has been working on this. Even if you need some kind of a dashboarding stuff, there are BI engineers which will support the data science team, because a data scientist team is not in silo, right? You have to work with full stack developers, you have to work with BI engineers, you have to work with ETL engineers. That's how we are going to make use of the other teams whenever there is a requirement where it is not your expertise. Okay, but don't be an under misconception saying that Tableau is a mandatory or a core skill set for a data scientist. Friends, you are developing the entire solution in an open source framework. For just one piece of the problem statement of visualizations, why do you go for a Tableau, which is a licensing product, right? Agree? So Manoj, you can add it. Sorry.
Same thing. So in R we can do. So are we only going to depend mostly on R or
Python 2. Right? So in R, we are
Python?
going to
Okay.
explain the visualizations, and also in Python 2, we are going to explain the visualizations. So the reason I have not used any programming language because it's horizontal. So this I'm just not mentioning any programming language because it would be applicable for every step, isn't it? So in Python 2, I'm going to talk about the matplotlib, and maybe as one of the students request, maybe as part of Haddock session, I'm going to explain you the Seaborn 2. See, there's like it's an ocean. Data science is an ocean. Now, you cannot, even if you want me to teach for 6 months, I can do it, but we need to always understand what is important, what is core. Okay. So this is we're going to take this particular of identifying the best concepts that will make an impact where you cannot be taught on those on a separate forum. Okay, friends. Now moving to the next one, towards the right. Right, just like we discussed towards the left, what happens before you start working on these, and at the same time we need to understand what happens once you deploy the solution. Now the business asks, hey, come up with a data driven solution which gives me 95% accuracy. Right, as I said, you have iterated through all these phases and you are able to deliver 96%, 1% above what is being expected. Right, you will not be always blessed to be in that particular situation. I'm an optimistic person, so I'm saying you have bet the threshold value that business kept as an acceptance criteria. Now the solution is ready. Right, the solution is ready in R language and the solution is ready in Python language. Now what do you do after this? Right, you need to box this solution so that you will be able to deploy this in a production box for the business to consume. Now consumption will happen in a number of ways. Sometimes you might have to schedule a Python script or a R script in a control or in a particular scheduler which will run in a particular period of time. Based upon maybe it's a customer churn, the customer behaviors would not change that drastically. Maybe we'll try to schedule once in 3 months, right? Because the new data keeps on coming in, right? You need to remodel the solution. So the reason what happens, but first it needs to sit in the production box where it start delivering the results to the business. So this is what we do. You work with DevOps teams. Why DevOps? Because for any solution to go to the production, and it is again, it is a very common misconception saying that a data scientist will try to deploy the solution. Friends, we are not a DevOps persons. We don't do CI/CD integrations. Just like your current software engineering roles, there would be some dedicated team who tries to push the solution that you have developed into the higher environment. And it's higher environment, it is a production box so that the business starts consuming the solution. So the reason we are going to work with DevOps teams, or generally these teams are called as machine learning implementation engineering teams. So towards the right, or else you will work with full stack development teams, because maybe your solution might have a new UI sitting on top of it. Maybe it's an independent application that your business wants to consume, and definitely you will not be a great expert on Angular JS or Node JS or maybe React JS or HTML code or CSS code for you to develop this tool. So the reason what we do, we work with full stack development team based upon how the business wants to consume it, or else business wants to consume it as a REST API service. Because if it is a simple microservice or REST API service, I am not bothered how this is being consumed. It could be used as a batch process, it could be used as a real-time process. So the reason towards that, once the machine learning solution is present, we are going to work with full stack development team, right, who will help us to package our solution in the way that business expects. And once the full stack development is going to wrap up our machine learning solution, we are going to work with the DevOps teams, right, or machine learning implementation engineering teams for us to push the solution that you have developed into the production box. Are you clear on this?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you clear? Any questions? Please stop me if you are not able to follow. Again, we are going to discuss the same thing as part of the end of the course too, but just to give an idea what happens towards the left to of us and what happens towards the right to of us, right, is very important.
Hi Dhanush, like I have a doubt regarding this full stack development and how it is related to this one data science. Like you
Very
told it
simple.
is more.
See, Sneha, see, you have developed the solution in Python, agree? Where you are trying to
Yes.
make use of Spider or you are going to make use of a Jupyter notebook to write the set of code. Now, how do you run it in the production box? You
Like
got the point?
yeah.
It means whether someone is trying to create a new application on top of these solutions, or else maybe this particular process has to be run as a batch process. If you want to run it right, you need to be make this particular solution as an executable. Agree? How do
Yes.
you do? How do you make this script that you have written in an executable format? And that's what I said. The full stack. If most of the times these solutions might be integrated with an existing application, right? Because the
Okay.
existing application might be a Java-based solution. Now, how do you integrate your solution to a Java-based application which is running and which is getting exposed to the business or the clients, right? It needs some sort of expertise to integrate this solution to the entire architecture, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, and we are not a people who are multi-talented who can work on .NET, Java, or some other different programming languages. So the reason the full stack development team comes as part of the need. If you wanted to just create a simple Django service or maybe Flask service or maybe Flask, I can explain you, which will not take more than 1 hour time. I can do it. But what if someone expects the business to consume these results to as an interactive application? Will you be able to develop one? No.
No.
Agree? Because Java or UI or Angular is not expert and they need not pay so heavy to develop a UI application, right? So the reason we are going to work with a full stack development team. When I say full stack, it could be UI side, it could be backend side, etc. I'm just trying to maintain a simple role who can help us in doing the wrapping of our machine learning solution as a REST API service or else a new application altogether or else integrating this solution with an existing application. Got the point?
Okay.
Once
Yes.
the final wrap up is done, definitely it has to go to the production box and we cannot push the code. Being on a technology side, you cannot push the code by yourself. Definitely a
Yes.
hosting platform, a production platform will have a implementation support team. The moment you provide the artifacts, they will try to push it either manually or if there is a CI/CD that is being pipeline has been built as part of the hosting platform, then they are trying to take care of them. Okay.
Okay. And what is
Does it
the difference, like the difference between like Python and this one R we are using in this data science, right? Why? How is they related? To both?
simple, right? So see, the simple concept is there are a number of languages to do the same thing, right? It is applicable to some of the other things too. Why people develop some UI applications, maybe React.js and AngularJS, because every language has its own pros and cons, right? So if a person is from
Yes.
more statistical or PhD behavior, they don't like Python. They like R because R is a very straightforward language. It is like writing in an English language, right? And again, it all
Yes.
depends upon the direction of your organization, right? Whether your organization is having any precedent saying that, hey, I have to use only Python, I have to use only R. So that is the only difference that it. But again, as I said, instead of saying R versus Python, I always say R and Python. Every language has its own set of pros and cons, right?
Yes.
And but most, it all depends upon the organization direction where you're going to work for.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank,
So friends, any
okay.
questions?
Thank you.
We are on top of the R. Any questions?
Dhanush, one again simple question. In of course you implemented the the solution, and maybe their end users are using the solution, but over the time the accuracy and those things, how come how end user really can say like this is really anomaly or because end user using it actually, because we are testing phase is
Santosh,
over.
just to rephrase, let's see, this is a not even we have started the session, right? Once you get the maturity about how things works, then it makes sense for us to discuss how it would work in the
Okay,
future,
okay, I'll
isn't it?
park that.
So it means it's
Okay,
a very, very, very too far question that we are discussing now. See, the objective of this
okay,
session is we are learning a lot of different modules. Why are we learning different modules? My objective is to connect these dots together, but in the process, people might ask this question. So then I just kept it in a very high level towards the left and towards the right. My intention of having this session is to help you. Why are we learning different tech stacks and how these are connected to different phases of a data science project. And all these things would be answered once we gain the knowledge
That's
on all the
okay.
modules.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll.
So sorry for skipping this, but again, it goes to a different direction altogether.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions, friends, before we drop? And again, this is an announcement. So please, enrollment for the program, the link might change for tomorrow, right? So only for those who have enrolled for the program will get the new meeting ID. So please do confirm your reservations so that we will not miss any of those sessions from now. Okay, friends. So talk to your admins so that you will get all those required informations about how do you start connecting from tomorrow. And your drive access would be initiated as soon as you make your seat confirmed.